Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Very excited to have you all here with us today. Thank you for joining us for Affirmations as a form of meditation with Tracy G. My name is Chelsey Lowe. I'm the Impact Labs Program Manager at the Economy League of Greater Philadelphia. And this is one of 3 fireside chats that we're hosting for the Well City Challenge. So the Well City Challenge is a social impact challenge tackling community solutions to millennial health and mental health in Philadelphia. So the challenge is presented by Independence Blue Cross, and we're currently accepting applications for our pitch competition where we have $50,000 in prizes across 3 categories. The first one is food and nutrition, then we have community and social connection, and finally mind and body. The application deadline is November 20th. You can learn more about the Well City Challenge at economyleague.org/wellcity. Now, I'm very excited to introduce wellness artist and podcast host, Tracy G. So give me a minute and I'm gonna bring Tracy into the room with us. Tracy, thanks for joining us. So you're currently on mute. So you're just gonna need to,
boom.
Always that reminder every time.
I didn't have theme music to accompany me, so it's okay. I was actually doing that on mute. I muted myself, the computer and me. Hey, child.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us. Want to give you some moment to introduce yourself to everyone.
Yeah, sure. So like Chelsey said, I consider myself to be a wellness artist, and it took me a while to find a type of branded identity that I felt really comfortable with, because sometimes, like a 2-word description just feels very limiting and stifling. But I like artists because it's limitless. It's all about expression. And to me, artistry is really when a form of alchemy, and you can take something that was nothing or that was a burden and then flip it to something that others consider to be a blessing. When you can turn your ashes into art, in a sense. And for my journey of wellness, it has been so zigzaggy. Sometimes the epiphanies burn in a way, because God is is shedding off layers, bringing forth parts of me that need to be front and center. And it can be uncomfortable. But what I realize is sharing a lot of that process, a lot of the lessons, is a form of art. So that's where the wellness artist comes in. And then I'm an on-air personality for Sway in the Morning on Sirius XM Monday through Friday. Podcaster, like Chelsey said, founder of She's Beauty and the Beast. That's where I collectively have all of my offerings, from audio vision boards, which is like my remix to Affirmations. My podcast is there as well. My blog, everything that comes from my heart is over there, except what I leave for my boo thing, Carl.
Keep something for yourself.
You know what I'm saying? Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you for that introduction. I love hearing about, your journey and kind of your process. I feel like a lot of us are doing a lot more of that self-work this year, in all the layers and as the world keeps coming to us. So yes, I'm so excited for you to have this conversation with us today. So I'm curious to know, when did your meditation and affirmation journey begin, and what have you discovered about yourself and your practice during the journey?
I love that question. I feel like it began a while ago, but without the name. I didn't have the language manifestation. I didn't have the affirmations, but I had unknowingly the exercise of it, like I was reflecting. I've been looking at past journals because for the first time this year, I completed a journal, and I've had maybe like 20 journals my entire life. And I always stop somewhere in the middle for whatever reason. And whenever I feel like I need to begin again, I feel like it has to be really sparkly and dazzling. And I just have to dive headfirst into newness as I see it versus picking up where I left off. And when I was looking at an old journal, it just brought me back to my first memory of manifestation, which is being like I don't know, a 10-year-old, and probably every single day at school during recess telling myself, you're going to end up in New York City around artists who are going to understand you and embrace you. And saying that aloud, well, aloud inside, but definitely for my spirit to hear. And I am living that right now. There was definitely a culture that I wanted just draping my entire existence. And New York City has provided that for me in so many ways. And what I realize now is that power of repetition, you know? And also, so I was doing that without knowing that is the formula, part of the formula for manifestation, right? And then what else was I doing? I was making sure that I was kind of finding how I could have the energy of New York City in Rockland County. I grew up in the suburbs, you know?
Mhm.
So, how do I create the energy of New York City so that the physicality of it is something that I live within? My mom works in the city. So every time my mom came home, I would always ask her, so what was happening in New York City today? You know what I mean? This is back in encyclopedias. Like I opened up the encyclopedia to look up New York City, like history. And I was so obsessed with New York City, but I didn't have, again, the term manifestation. I didn't realize it. So I feel like that's a sign that I'm probably like 1,000 years old. This is not my first like cycle as a human, you know what I mean? But yeah, it stems all the way back then. And it also makes me realize that we always hear that we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. And I realized that your past self, like that child, that 10-year-old, is also my ancestor. Because, hear me out, the way I see an ancestor is someone who is no longer here in physical form, but is definitely a partner in our life in spiritual form. And that's my 10-year-old self. My 10-year-old self was so in tune with her intuition, probably because she only spent 10 years on earth and however many other years in her other vortex in heaven, wherever, but she just was tapped in. And so I'm living her wildest dreams. I'm not in a 10-year-old body, thank God. But she's guiding me in what I need to do right now. So
I love
yeah,
that. I
that's
love that
the answer to that question that I haven't given before.
yeah, I love that your childhood manifestations have, blossomed in your career and you're there. You're calling in today from New York City. Correct.
Yeah, exactly. And then even like now when it comes to, all right, I know the term manifestation and I am proactively going out of my way to manifest something, that earliest memory, well, I won't say the earliest memory, but the standout memory is definitely Sway in the Morning.
Mm.
And even when I was younger, I was obsessed with radio too. Like I didn't realize how much radio, or just communication, I should say, oral communication, was such a thread in my life. But when I was working in magazines and I was just like, you know what, this is no longer serving me and I'm no longer really serving this industry because I don't feel my best right now. What the hell am I going to do? And then radio was just this whisper that eventually became a roar. And it made me quite uncomfortable at first. It felt pretty narcissistic to believe my voice should be worthy of like a microphone, you know? But I went with it because I didn't call it. It called me. It called my name. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't have Sway Calloway's number in my speed dial. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Angie Martinez was not, I didn't know what her address was. I didn't go to brunch with Angie. So it was like, what the hell are we going to do to manifest this? And a couple of things that I did to, again, just assume the energy of radio, right? While it shows up in physical form, is the boyfriend I was with at that time, for his birthday, I recorded, like I made like a radio show where I was the host, and it was like 1985.5 because that was like the year that he was born. You know what I mean?
I love that. I love you sharing more about your journey in radio, because I'm a big fan of your audio vision boards. So I'm curious to know more about, or if you could give one example of an affirmation that you use when you're looking for, some more direction within your life, or like a lot of us are experiencing right now, stress, like when you're feeling stressed or uneasy. Like, what's one affirmation that you go to?
Yeah, sure. I'll have several that I'll give out. Going back to the inner child is, I know surrender allows my inner child to grasp the hand of God. That is my one, because when I think of child, for me, that allows me to just sit back into the arms of my parent. That offers me protection, direction, rest, ease. And that's necessary for the journey. And it also just gives me permission to hit pause. A lot of times we think if we're on play, moving, productivity, that is proof that we are bringing value to our life, that we are of value, to be alive. But that's really not true. And that leads me to, or at least for me, and that leads me to another affirmation, which is very simple, which is just, I know even in stillness, a movement can dwell within. And before we got on screen, or officially on screen, we were talking about just plants, and you asked me how I feel, and I said how initially when I thought of myself blooming, like I always saw a garden with flowers, but I feel something bigger beginning to take root and form like a tree, And so one of my first languages I speak is analogy, like metaphors all day. And so with that affirmation, it reminds me that when you plant something, it looks like we lose patience. A lot of times when you're waiting for a plant to grow, you might look at it every day like, inches, where you at? But just because it's not happening at that moment doesn't mean it's not happening beneath the surface. Like, so much needs to happen beneath the surface. And for me, fear, uncertainty, all of these darker, heavier emotions really spark when my faith is shaky and when I don't believe I'm doing enough, when the script of Western society that says work, if I'm not doing that, then I'm like, I'm not successful. And then that ends up being a big story of I'm not worthy, I'm not this, I'm not that, blah, blah, blah.
I love that you bring that up, because I do think that there's this relation to millennials and this hustle culture where we all have to have 5 side hustles and 2 day jobs and this go grind. And I do think affirmations, I appreciate that reminder for stillness, to sit down. Meditation isn't always, sound baths and chimes. Like, it can be these other forms. Thank you.
And then finally, and then a go-to of mine for a while is also, I am worthy, rising, and whole, even while piecing together the puzzle. And I think it's just honoring duality, and that the person we are right now, so many times, we can end up overdosing on self-help and glorifying this future self as if he, she, or they is separate from who we are. But like, it's this person that's in the driver's seat taking the journey to that other person. You know what I mean? And they're just one and the same. Like, if you're a Christian, you think of like the Holy Trinity. If you can believe that God is in physical form, you know what I mean? God is in spirit, and then God is also in, like in a paternal type of position, right? And they're all God, and then we are reflections of God. Then we have that same capability as well, instead of just looking at it things in singularity where it's like, I'm only gonna rock with myself when this happens. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Because if it doesn't, you can let me know.
No,
I won't be offended.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm definitely following you. That duality conversation, I think that's something too. But yes, thank you. There's so many gems. I'm like, there are things within what you're saying that I'm really excited that we have you here today. But yeah, definitely wanted to talk a little bit more about healthy lifestyles and healthy eating, because that's
Yeah.
a big component.
As I hydrate.
Yes, yes. Everyone stay hydrated. If you don't have water, pull some up next to you. But how are you working towards a healthy, balanced lifestyle? And are there any things you avoid to maintain your sense of peace and happiness?
Just overconsumption of any form, mentally, especially even if I realize that my eyes are so tired, like out of all of our senses, and then I'll go into more practical, like, what I physically consume, like with food and stuff like that. But I think for a lot of millennials, a part of this cloud of fatigue that's always like kind of lingering above us, it's because we overextend our sense of vision, because we're always looking at something, and it's always a screen that, just that's why we have these freaking like glasses that have like a special like glare control or whatever, and make sure that all these techie things don't end up like eating your sanity alive. But even still, it can also mess with your circadian rhythm, right? Because the light from all of this manufactured light, although that is a blessing, but again, in excess, but it's tricking your brain into thinking that the sun is up, which then confuses like your system, because your body's like, but wait, like we're kind of tired though. But the brain's like, no, there's so much light everywhere, we must be up. And then we have a clash. And also because our social medias don't come with office hours. You know what I'm saying? Like Twitter is not 9 to 5 and then see you the next day. You know what I mean? Like I called like Chase today, and it was, I realized, oh snap, when I got the call, like it closes. It's so funny to me sometimes, and I'm like, oh yeah, like things have boundaries, Tracy. Like don't let the internet like get you twisted. You know what I'm saying? And so with that said, the meditation, even if it's just simply allowing myself to close my eyes without it being because I'm sleeping, but it being so that I can give some love to my sense of hearing, give some love to taste. How many times are we eating and texting at the same time? And it's actually like, I don't want to say the word ruin, that's so aggressive, but to me, it is decreasing the potential of pleasure, the full pleasure that you could be receiving from your food if we just tapped into the sense of taste. Like that is a phenomenal freaking gift, especially as a human. Like animals, like lions, okay, they eat meat like a lot of us, but a lion has no idea what barbecue sauce is. A lion is eating meat the same way every damn day. A lion don't know this meat can be braised, this meat can be smoked, this meat can come in a variety of ways. And us humans, a part of our experience is that we have so many options, but we don't even realize it because we have self-induced ourselves into this coma in a lot of ways by over-indexing on technology. Don't judge this, but yeah. So that's my thing is I stay healthy. I try my best to stay healthy because I'm in the matrix as well. So it's not that I'm cured. I'm just managing. And then sometimes going back to water, girl, I have to ask myself, is it anxiety or is it just dehydration?
That's true.
Like,
are we sitting still in one spot all day staring at screens? And it's like, when was the last time you had a sip?
yes. And it's like we forget again because we're just eating for like just to satiate our hunger, but not to like enjoy it. We may not even realize that like, no, our body depends on this nutrition. Like it's not just, oh, just drink water because someone says was drink water. Like, no, like this also helps with, that the brain fog that we get. You know what I mean? Like blood circulation, different things like that. And also paying attention as a woman to the 4 different cycles that we in particularly have. Oftentimes we just think about our menstrual cycle, you know what I mean? And then we forget, or maybe haven't even learned the other 3. And our moods are shifting because the chemicals in our body are shifting. And we can find that balance by eating foods for those different stages.
I love everything you're saying. I feel like I could talk to you forever, but I did want to make a point and tie back to why we're talking about millennials and health specifically,
Yeah.
because I know we're all struggling, with hydration and stress, but we're partnering with Independence Blue Cross, and actually the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association, they did last year a Health of Millennials report, and they found that on average, major health decline begins at the age of 27. So
Wow.
we're seeing that that's like a crucial age, and right, for a lot of millennials, you're not even thinking about health at that age. But I was just curious to know, I guess, how can we encourage more young people, more millennials, to prioritize health and wellness and even meditation within their daily lives?
Yeah, it's crazy that it's 27, because I also think of like the 27 Club, that term in entertainment for a lot of our artists whose lives were lost, you know what I mean? And mainly through battles of addiction at that age, which ties into the mental health. I feel like, and I'm experiencing this right now, is I'm seeing a lot of the change happen in group chats. I'm literally in a group chat right now on WhatsApp doing a 20-day meditation challenge. And I'm on my 19th day. And it's the Deepak and Oprah one. And although I meditate pretty regular, or often, I'll say that, I've been trying to complete the Oprah and Deepak challenge for I don't know how many years. That was my first experience with meditation, and I could never complete it. And I really feel like a big chunk of the reason why is because I have a support system in a community. You know what I mean? And the way that it's being spoken about, it doesn't feel so isolated, like, all right, she's the wellness girl, she doesn't have other layers, you know what I mean? It's a holistic conversation, which often brings up wellness instead of making it so separate. And I also feel like going back to that 10-year-old version of myself, I learned repetition so early. And so having an event like this, I'm also seeing, I have some friends of mine who are teachers, and they're bringing in affirmations into their classroom to create that muscle. Yes. Because then once you have muscle, you then have muscle memory, when you start exercising the muscle. And so I feel like if we begin at an early age and normalize it, you know what I mean? The same way how you may even teach a kid, like potty train a kid, you start, you know what I mean? Affirmation training a child. Right? Like all of these things that we go out of our way to teach because we believe they're basic necessities, because they honor our physical body, but we're understanding that our mental is a part of this body, you know what I mean? And that should be treated as a basic necessity as well.
I love that. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to touch on 2 audience Q&A. So we've been kind of talking about this throughout the evening, but someone's question was, it's been so crazy being in quarantine and feeling isolated, being away from everyone socially, professionally. I can definitely relate. I live alone. It looks like we are headed towards the same thing this winter. Any advice for millennials on how to stay in a good headspace or stay calm or keep from being depressed?
I mean, I want to try to keep things concise because there's a whole buffet of things that I could say, but for myself, it is getting on the phone. I know that FaceTime, Zoom is popular, but again, I'm fatigued from viewing, and I'm just gonna take it back to old school. You know what I mean? Get on the phone. Also, even further back is write a letter. I saw someone that I follow on Instagram, and she's doing a project that is so dope, where for 100 days, she is having her followers ask a question and she answers it in a letter. In a letter. And again, the senses, having something tangible to hold. So many products now are digital. You know what I mean? They're tethered to the screen. But having a piece of paper, like a memento, I feel like that is so beautiful. Even if it's just, even if there's no one that you feel especially close to write a letter, but writing a letter to yourself right now and dating it in the future. Like date it for, I don't know, just pick like January 1st, 2021. You know what I mean? Or maybe it's February 14th for Valentine's Day. You know what I'm saying? And then that's your little gift to yourself. And it's like, oh my goodness, like, look at the lessons I was able to pull from this time. Or even if you were in a depressive state, I'm not trying to weaponize positivity and say it has to be light, 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 light. But just whatever form your honesty takes, it's going to be really interesting to see that, one, you survived that. Two, you might even have thrived during that. You know, you can do hard things and you love yourself. It feels good to get a letter, to get a card, like things that we kind of romanticize and believe that others should be doing for us in order to feel valued, but then doing it for ourselves. I think dating yourself, you know, is important.
I love everything that you've said. Unfortunately, we're actually almost out of time. I could talk to you all night, and thank you so much. This was very important for me. I feel like you poured back into me, and I needed it. I'm moving in this go, 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 and I needed that reminder to close my eyes. Like meditation can just be closing your eyes for a moment, put away the phone, drink some water, and journal and write a letter. Thank you for all of these tangible opportunities. I'm so grateful to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you want to learn more about the Well City Challenge, I encourage you to visit economyleague.org/Well City. Tracy G, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you, Chelsey. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.